Well, and we have joining us live the founder of a Women Empowerment Initiative, Funmi, Falana. Funmi, glad you could make it to the studios for this interview.
Thank you very much.
Well, the theme for this year's celebration of Women's Day is equality for women and justice for all. Now, you would briefly want to talk about the theme and why this theme was particularly chosen.
Yes, specifically, the theme for this year is inspiring change. Okay. And it tends to focus on the socioeconomic achievements of women all over the world. The political achievements, the area of politics, and the achievements in the area of decision making. It tends to look into how far our women have gone in decision making, how far our women have gone in politics, in education, and what we need to do to improve the status of women all over the world. And Nigeria is also inclusive.
Not left us, of course. Well, from the video, the clips we watched, rape is one issue that's been popping up regularly. In some countries, it seems to be taken for granted, one or two countries, while in some cases women are used as spawns. Can this battle be fought, really? She talked about how they intend fighting it.
Unfortunately, of recent, the rate of increase of rape cases in Nigeria has continued to increase, and it's becoming worrisome. And this is not unconnected with the rate of violence, increase of violence in the society. But specifically, we have also discovered that the issue of rape cannot be disconnected with so many factors that are associated with cases of rape. For example, the prosecution of rape cases in Nigeria is laced with so many technicalities. And so very many accused persons get away without offense, even when they are brought to court. Then a lot of rape victims find it difficult to report cases of rape because of the societal norms. It is assumed that when you report such a case, the society throws their eyes on you. It may be difficult for you to get a husband if you are unfortunately unmarried. And so people will usually not want to report rape cases. Some of the time when rape cases are reported, they chicken out during prosecution. And the police too, because when we need to prosecute rape cases, the aspect of investigation is very crucial. The police must also be trained, properly trained, in the process of investigation of rape cases. Because of the technicalities involved in rape cases, the issues of investigation begin right from immediately after the crime has been committed, the underwear of the victim, the medical report of the victim, and the testimonies of the victim. Everything put together will help the prosecutor in achieving a proper prosecution.
Now, you've talked about three things that seem to be a barrier to fighting rape cases. One is the law. I'm going to ask you a question on that. And
yes.
then, of course, the police and their investigations.
Yes.
And then the victim,
yes.
the stigma, the
yes.
fact that they're not able to open up. How do you people intend to get the victims open up? Enlightenment. How do people tend to get, and then the police, and then are there enough legislations?
Thank you. Of recent.
Or laws to help?
Of recent, when we talk
this?
of victims, of recent, we have continued to educate Nigerian girls, especially the minors, how to protect themselves against such cases. We have also continued to educate people on how they can report rape cases if eventually they are unfortunate to find themselves in that
situation.
Yes, and the things they need to do, immediately it happens to them, so that they at least will be able to bring to book the perpetrator of the offense and get proper prosecution. Now, the case of police, it's a very big problem we have in the country. And when you ask them, they want to tell you they have a human rights department. Fine, there needs to be a human rights department that will specialize in these aspects of investigation because it entails a lot of technicalities. Now, for example, one of my clients, and I keep saying it, it is unfortunate, There was a client of mine, an underage, a 7-year-old girl that was molested or raped consistently, assaulted by her stepfather for several months. Eventually, when this was discovered, the case was reported to the police. Now, for a 7-year-old girl, the police had to take the testimony of this victim 7 different times. For an underage who did not understand what was happening, who could not even appreciate the essence of giving such testimony, who perhaps would have forgotten what happened when that when the rape occurred, and very many days thereafter.
A very serious case. I'm going to stop you a little bit there.
Yes.
We might get back to that issue. But
yes.
There's an interesting statement from a former U.S. Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
I'd like us to take a listen to what she said, and then we'll get back to the studio.
Okay.
Women and girls thrive, entire societies thrive. Just as women's rights are human rights, women's progress is human progress. Yet for all that we have achieved together, this remains the great unfinished business of the 21st century.
For all that we have achieved, this remains the big one. Women's rights. You want to talk about what she addressed?
Women's rights, it's human rights.
Like you said.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, well, like in America, the extent of achievement in the area of women's rights in America cannot be compared with what we have in Nigeria. And this is not unconnected with the several years of struggle they have had in America. And so we are here struggling for the rights of women. Now, in the area of the first generation rights, political and civil rights, we know that in Nigeria, our laws provide equality before the law. And the provisions of the Constitution provide for non-discrimination, specifically Section 42 of the Constitution provides that nobody shall be discriminated against. In other words, all the provisions of the Constitution, the human rights provisions of the Constitution are available to the men, are also available to the women. Fine. But the second generation rights, that is the socio-economic rights, and this is the aspect of the achievement of women that this theme, the theme of this year, tends to focus on. We also have the third generation rights, which people are beginning to talk of reproductive rights.
But what do you mean by second generation rights?
Fine. Now, the first generation rights is the civil and the political right. That was the one, the human rights started with the first generation rights. After the International Human Rights Convention in Geneva several years ago, it was decided that there need to be specific standard, at least minimum standard, and that must be given to people for coexistence of humanity and for subsisting peace. And so there were the political and the civil rights. Right. For example, right to life.
That's the first one.
Yeah, the first generation
not
rights
the second
include, there are many first generation rights.
No, I'm talking about second now.
The second generation rights, we have the socio-economic rights. That's right to food, right to education, right to shelter, right to work. These are the socio-economic rights.
Why those incidences of rape and all that fall in?
Fine. You will find out that even in the inability of a victim to report a rape case may not be unconnected with financial dependence or the level of education of a girl who may not know the implications of what is likely to happen, who of course may also be shy because of the level of education and exposure to speak out when she's been sexually harassed, who of course may also not be aware of the rights that are available to her, even in case of an unfortunate incident of rape.
I wish we had all the time in the world there, man, but so glad you could make it to the studio. I would have even wanted to pursue the case of the 7-year-old, but thanks so much for being in the studio.
Thank you very much.
And that's all we can take from Falana there, Funmi Falana.